Do I have a second?
I'd second that.
Okay, all those in favor say, oh, or Julie, do you need to take a
Yes, let's take a vote,
by-person
please. Yes.
vote?
And we will start with you, Chair McLeod, to pass the minutes. Yes or no? Can you hear me?
No, we did not. It looked like you froze there for a bit.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. When I call your name, please say yes or no as to pass the minutes. Chair McLeod,
Yes.
Trustee Kramer,
Yes.
Trustee Stoffel,
Yes.
Trustee McLowry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, before we go on, are there any visitors today to be introduced?
No visitors.
Right.
We have Don Porth he's attending virtually. Can he speak here to the crowd while he's attending? So he can introduce himself.
Don, if you'd like to say something, I've allowed it.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, very good. Well, I'm the president of the Portland Retired Firefighters and Widows Association, and I just wanted to listen in to see if there's a decision or outcome on the annual raises. So that's my purpose for being here today.
Okay, good. Well, that's coming up almost immediately in the agenda. Nice to have you.
Well, thank you for letting me sit in.
Okay, and Julie, is there anyone who's signed up to make in-person public comments?
There is no in-person public comment today.
Okay, then. Well, then I guess we're moving right on to that agenda item that Mr. Porth is interested in, the annual adjustment review for FPDR 2 members.
All right, and that is all me. For the record, I'm Stacy Jones, the FPDR Pension and Finance Manager. And I was just thinking about those minutes. It's sort of like watching yourself on video. When I read back over what I said, I'm like, wow, I say folks all the time, and I say a lot, and I do say words like crosswalk in confusing ways. So it's sort of painful to read back over what you actually said versus what you planned to say. All right, so luckily for you guys, though, I have a pretty short talk today. So as usual at our March board meeting, I want the board to discuss whether they wish to give an annual cost of living adjustment, COLA, to the FPDR2 beneficiaries, and if so, how much and when. So there is a memo in your board packet for today's meeting that kind of goes over the board's authority with respect to the COLA, describes inflation over the last year in calendar year 2025, talks about the costs to the fund and impacts to our retirees of some COLA options. And it also gives some background on how the board has handled this discussion and decision in the past. But before we turn to FPDR2 beneficiaries, let me just pause and tell you what is going to happen with the FPDR1 beneficiaries for their COLA. And Julie, would you be able to share the memo? It might be helpful for people to see up on the table. And if you can share the memo and just go down to page 5. Can folks at home see it, or is it just us here in the room who can see it? Oh, yeah, you might have to share your screen. Okay. Well, I'll just keep talking while Julie sees if she can do that. If not, you can turn to it in the board materials. It's page 5 of the memo. So it's at the very end, but I'm going to talk about it first, just so then we can move on to what the board needs to do. Because this is just informational, because the annual COLAs for FPDR1s are dictated by the plan document, by City Charter, Chapter 5. And so FPDR1 benefits are a % of active duty police officer or firefighter pay, as the case may be. So FPDR1s receive the same pay increases as active PPA and PFFA members receive. So the table on page 5 gives you some more information about what we expect those COLAs to be and what we expect the costs to be. And then the impacts for our FPDR1 members. So the PFFA contract requires about a 5.1% pay increase on July 1st, and that is a 3% increase for cost of living adjustment, for inflationary COLA, I should say, and then 2% for a previously negotiated across-the-board wage increase that's in their contract. So our FPDR 1 fire retirees and surviving spouses will get about 5.1% on July 1st. The PPA contract expires on June 30th, as I'm sure Trustee Stoffel is well aware. So we don't technically know what wage increase there will be for our FPDR 1 police members on July 1st. But for them, we are assuming the status quo that exists in the current PPA contract, which would be to get that 3% inflationary increase. So it is an assumption for the FPDR 1 police folks, but known for the FPDR 1 fire. We only have 205 FPDR 1s remaining, and they have smaller pension benefits than FPDR 2s. So the cost is pretty minimal, even though the increases are relatively large in percentage terms. So it's going to cost about $400,000 a year to give them these anticipated COLAs on July 1st. Of course, it could be more if there are additional wage increases in that PPA contract once it's negotiated and settled. But that's what we're planning for right now, just to fill the board in on what's happening with those 200-ish FPDR 1 retirees and surviving spouses. Before I talk about FPDR 2, are there any questions about the FPDR 1s? All right, seeing none. So let's turn back to the FPDR 2s and the action item that is before the board. So actually, you were all here, I think, when we had this discussion last March. So I'm not going to go into as much detail as last year. That said, I know it was a year ago, and this annual decision, while excruciatingly familiar to some of you, is less familiar to newer members of the board. So just pipe up if you have any questions. Historically, the board has always awarded a COLA to FPDR 2 beneficiaries of some kind and has always made it effective July 1st. The board does have sole discretion over what the FPDR 2 COLA will be, whether there will be one, when it will happen, and what it will be. There is a limitation I'll talk about in a minute. From 1990, when the FPDR 2 plan was created, and through 2013, the board used the same COLA methodology as PERS. I'm not going to go into the details of that methodology, but it's in the background section of your memo if you, and I'm sure some of you recall it probably with traumatic effects. The PERS COLA methodology changed in 2014. Again, I'm skipping over much of the story here. And the intent of that change was to reduce the COLA for newer retirees. Again, I'm not going to describe how the new PERS methodology works, but it's also in the background section of the memo. Since 2014, the FPDR board has always awarded a more generous COLA than the PERS COLA, but the methodology the board has selected has varied. Everything approach that somewhat mimics the new PERS approach. So let me pause and remind everyone why is 2% the maximum. City charter says, let me just pull up the actual language and get it right, says the COLA awarded by the board, it shall, quote, shall not exceed the percentage rate applied to retirement benefits payable to police and fire employees by PERS. So that is the restriction that the board has in city charter. Not unfortunately, but logically, the writers of Chapter 5 of the City Charter didn't foresee that there would be a day when the PERS COLA methodology would change so that there is no single COLA for all PERS retirees. That just doesn't exist anymore. So when that PERS methodology did change back in 2014, the question arose and the board asked the question, well, what does this charter language mean? Does it mean that the board can't exceed the average rate for PERS retirees, or it can't use a more generous COLA method? Or is it just that the board can't award a COLA that would be higher than the COLA received by any PERS retiree? And the city attorney's office did respond and gave the board an opinion at that time, interpreting the language to mean the last interpretation I just said, which was that the board can't award a COLA that is higher than the COLA received by any public safety PERS retiree. And right now that's 2%. So that's why the 2% is the upper bound. So that's the background. Considerations, things that the board either should think of, well, and the board, it's not just that they should think about that, the board has talked about all of these things in the past. I would say that there are kind of 4 things that the board always, or not always, but has often talked about in relation to this decision. The first is obviously inflation in the prior year, like how are increasing costs impacting retirees and surviving spouses. The second issue, also kind of obviously, is cost to the fund. How would any given COLA impact the fund's financial position or impact taxpayers? The third issue is the tax levy cap. And there's been discussion about whether a higher COLA increases the risk of hitting that $2.80 cap that we have on our tax levy. And then the final thing is the connection to the PERS COLA, whether in charter language or historically. So those are kind of the 4 things that have come up to varying degrees, at least since I've been at FPDR. So let's talk first about inflation. And Julie, if you wouldn't mind going to page 2 now of the memo. The chart on page 2 shows you 2025 inflation data and also historic data for the 2 indices that we've discussed in the past. And I'll just wait for Julie to get there. Yep, that's the one. So hopefully folks can see that. Okay, thanks, Julie. I mean, basically, no matter which index you use, I mean, inflation was about 3% last year is the short answer without getting into all the different indices. Just as a reminder, you can see in this chart that inflation was very high during the pandemic years in 2021 and 2022, and it started to stabilize in 2023, and it's returned to sort of historically typical levels for the last 2 years. So that is a look at inflation. Let me pause and see if there are questions about inflation, and I just skipped over indices and nope. Okay. So next, let's talk about cost to the fund. Julie, would you be able to scroll down to page 3? There is a table on page 3 of your memo that it outlines both the cost to the fund and hence the taxpayers and the impact for retirees and surviving spouses if the board gave the maximum COLA, which would be the 2%. So obviously, if you chose anything less than this, it would cost less than this and give less to retirees. But if the board wanted to give a 2% COLA, it would cost the fund about $3.3 million in next fiscal year 26-27. Of course, it's not a one-time cost. Every time the board awards a COLA, you increase that cost for every future year as well. But to give you a sense of the annual cost, $3.3 million next year. And there's details in the memo about the assumptions behind that. But and what would that mean for individual members? At the median, it would be an additional $136 a month for FPDR2 retirees and surviving spouses. At the low end, which is for like alternate payees who are just getting like a very small portion of a pension, it's only going to give those folks $5 more a month because their benefits are very small to begin with. At the high end, which is primarily retired chiefs of one kind or another, it would give them about $300 more a month. So hopefully that gives you my usual kind of snapshot of what it would cost the fund and the taxpayers and what it would mean to the retirees and surviving spouses. In terms of concerns about the tax levy, the risk of hitting the levy cap, even in our peak expense years in the 2030s, has become really small. So while cost to the taxpayers is obviously still a concern, in terms of that, COLAs are expensive. As you saw, $3.3 million next year, and we'll have to levy that every year in perpetuity, and it will grow because COLAs compound. But the concern about the likelihood of hitting the cap, it's no longer really a real concern for the COLA decision, is my view of that. And then the last consideration, which I've already mentioned, is the connection to the PERS COLA. Different trustees have had different opinions about the intent of the charter language as opposed to the strictly legal interpretation. So that's continued to be a point of discussion in some years and to varying degrees over the years. So let me pause again and ask if there are any questions. Okay, so I'll stop talking in just a minute and let you all discuss, ask questions, but let me remind you of the actions that you can take today.
And just so you know, Trustee Kramer does have his hand up.
Oh, he does, I just can't see it. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Trustee Kramer.
I'm sorry, Stacy. This should wait until you finish your thoughts.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just very quickly say I guess there are 4 things you can do today. You can pick a COLA rate that applies to everyone, so long as it's not more than 2%. Or you can pick a COLA method, like methodology, that you want us to use, and that could result in different COLAs for different beneficiaries, so long as no one will get more than 2%. Or you can say that you're not going to provide COLA at all. Or you can ask for more information about anything, including any options that you might be interested in, and I'll bring those back in May. That's why we always start this conversation in March, in case the board has a direction they want us to go and want some additional information. So those are kind of the 4 things that the board could do today. And like I said, I think this is super familiar to some of you, and only somewhat familiar to a couple of you. But okay, go ahead, Trustee Kramer. That's all I have to say.
Thanks. Catherine, is that okay? Were you about to say something?
No, not at all.
This is a point that I think Trustee McLaury explained a couple years ago, and I just want to go back and confirm my understanding of what he explained, or correct my understanding of what he explained. I think I asked 2 years ago whether the FPDR members participate in any employer-funded defined contribution plan. And before I let Trustee McLaury get in a word edgewise, what I thought he explained was that there was a voluntary contribution 457 type plan that had no employer contributions to it. That is, no dollars came out of the employer's pocket for that. And I wanted to confirm or correct my understanding to that effect.
No, that is absolutely correct. And of course, Trustee McLaury can chime in if he wants. But yeah, the sworn employees, in fact, all city employees have access to a 457B plan, which for anyone listening is sort of the government version of a 401k plan, but there is no match from the city on that. It's just whatever they choose to set aside themselves. The sworn employees also have a VEBA. It's not a retirement benefit, but it's like a medical health benefit. But again, I don't believe there's an employer match for that as well. Is that correct, Trustee McLaury?
You say employer or employee?
Employer
No.
for the VEBA, yeah.
No.
No employer match for that as well. And then as a reminder also that sworn employees at the city do not participate in Social Security. So if they're eligible for Social Security benefits and retirement, it's from work outside of the city or non-sworn work at the city.
Thank you both.
Now, I assume part of that question or clarification is standing in contrast to what PERS does have, which is that defined contribution, the IAP, that is an employer-funded pension style or for a market-based account for all those people that when they retire.
That's 100% right.
Yeah, the PERS folks, the PERS plan is a hybrid plan, partially defined benefit and partly defined contribution. And so the defined for Tier 3 public safety employees, which is what our FPDR 3 members almost entirely are, at 30 years, the defined benefit portion gives them a 45% benefit of their final salary, and then sort of the remainder of their retirement. Beyond that comes from the individual account program, which again works kind of like a 401k, but is fully matched. Well, yes, fully matched and sometimes fully funded. In fact, at the city, fully funded by the city.
In addition, the PERS is set up for the state. Almost everybody else in the state also has Social Security. It just happens that Portland fire and police do not.
Right. And I believe there's a provision in the charter to change that. If I believe it's like a vote of the union membership and approval of council, they could join Social Security. I think it's a mutual, my understanding is that's kind of a mutual decision between the union and the city. Of course, it saves the city money on the FICA tax, which is 6.2%. It also saves the employee
Yes.
6.2%.
Yep.
Catherine, I don't want to truncate discussion in any way, but I'm ready to propose a motion when that's appropriate.
Well, is there any other discussion or questions? It sounds like not, so it sounds like we're open to a motion.
Julie, do we have to see if anyone wants to testify before they vote? Or do people sign up for that? No. Okay, okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm going to interject real quickly because I believe Trustee Kramer is already going kind of where I was going to go with this. Sort of some of that background with the sort of what people call the three-tiered stool of the PERS pension. But in addition to that, just, before you make your motion, to point out, looking at on page 2, the CPI over the past 5 years, and that's just the most recent ones. Like I have some data that goes back further than that. There is this notion of, even when we were at our max of 2%, which is looking at these last 5 years, is an erosion essentially from the inflation of those, from those years. That the additional, that sort of goes into a bucket that can then be used to buy down. And that's talked to in the first paragraph of the background that Stacey was talking about on page 3, that carryover could then be spent down to bring the beneficiary's COLA up to 2% in relatively infrequent years when the inflation was less than 2%. I just feel like we are currently in that situation. So I'll leave you, Trustee Kramer, to make your motion, and we'll see where we go.
I would move that we approve a 2% COLA for all participants effective July 1.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Then, Julie, would you take our votes on that, please?
Yes, thank you. Trustee McLaury,
Yes.
Trustee Stoffel,
Yes.
Trustee Kramer,
Yes.
Chair McLeod.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you all for a quick and easy decision. That always delights my pension manager. She can go back and implement it. And happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. Chair McLeod, I would have pegged you for a Scottish lass, not an Irish one.
Well, it is, but it's just across the water there, so.
Oh, I don't know how that works. I assumed, the closer people live to each other, the more they hate each other.
Oh, like family, yes.
Yeah. Or is there an affinity between the Scottish and the Irish? All right. I will turn it back over to Sam.
No, it's over to you.
That's over to me.
Yep.
FPDR summary of expenditures.
Get my mic turned. See, oh my gosh. Even when I think I can escape, I can't quite. Let's see. What is there to point out to you? I did jot down in my notes a couple of things. Fund expenses. So if you look down at fund expenses, which is the last box in the table, and look at debt retirement, which is the middle line of that box, if you cruise over to January, you will see that as required, we did repay our interfund loan, $50 million in principal, and then $637,000 in interest, which is about $90,000 less than we had budgeted. So that was great. And I know Trustee McLaury asked just to make sure that that had happened or was going to happen last time, and just wanted to show everyone that it did in fact happen. Not that I think accounting would let us forget about it. Another small thing to point out, if you look at external materials and services, which is the second box, actually maybe an easier place to see it is up in the chart above. If you look at disability and death benefits, I know that those bars are very small compared to pension expenses, but you can see that disability benefits were tracking lower again this year, and we've talked about that a couple of times, how that's been the case for the last couple of years. That we've only spent about 1/3 of the budget, even though we're more than halfway through the fiscal year. But I did want to say this chart only goes through January because that was February hadn't closed when we sent this to you. We have seen significant increases in short-term disability and medical costs over the last 6 weeks. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like the next time I bring it to you. Final thing, if you look at FPDR 3 PERS contribution, again, looking at the bars, you can see that we are really keeping those contributions rolling out the door in a way that they never have before. Switching to monthly billing, having police and fire, they're billing us every month instead of every quarter now. And also, I think that they just, there's a finance manager over in the public safety service area who has really prioritized this. So we've always paid as soon as we got the bills, but now we're getting the bills on time and on a regular basis. We've paid out almost triple what we had paid out at this time last year. So that is good for the general fund. I mean, some of that is just that costs are higher every year, but most is that it's a more timely reimbursement process. And that, I think, is all that I really need to say about that. But I'm happy to answer questions. Oh, Trustee Kramer, yes.
Stacy, on the personnel costs, we had about a 20% blip in December, and then January about 10% higher than we had been. Is that a sort of traditional, sort of seasonal, annual thing, or is there something that we should be aware of? It's obviously not a huge ticket item.
It is related to the 27 pay date phenomenon, actually, which we talk about so much in relation to pensions. And sorry, I don't have my personal copy pulled up, so I'm just kind of zeroing in on the one that yes. So you will see it. Yes. Okay. I see what you mean. Yes. You will see it. There'll be a couple of months. Every now and then there'll be a month that has 3 pay dates in it. In fact, every year that happens. And then the other thing that happens kind of month to month, so it's not perfect the way the months are divided. They also do accruals on an accounting basis for the month. So everybody gets paid every 2 weeks, but then they accrue any part of a pay period that's split between months. They'll accrue back to the previous month. So that helps to even it out somewhat. But still, we still wind up with multiple pay dates, with 3 pay dates instead of 2 in some months. And the other difference is health insurance. Health insurance, which is a big expense, is only paid out 24 times a year rather than 26 or 27. So that also causes fluctuation between those months. Yeah, and I think there's nothing else going on there that I can think of.
Stacy, question that I should have asked in the last agenda item, but I forgot at the time. The increases for FPDR 1 members, is that also July, the 2 different percents? You talked about the 3+ and the 5+%. Are those also July 1, 26?
Yes, and that's
Okay.
because the charter is written to give them a percent of those folks' active duty pay on July 1. So,
Okay.
so yes.
Okay.
That said, if the PPA contract is not in place on July 1, which, as you all might remember, sometimes happens, then the FPDR 1 police beneficiaries wouldn't receive their COLA until that contract got settled. But then, as long as the pay increase was retroactive to July 1, we would issue retroactive pension benefits as well, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. Okay. I was just curious because it looks like the FPDR, it's 1 and 2 benefits seem surprisingly right on track. I mean, like,
Well,
like exactly the right percent year to date. It's kind of surprising.
it is a little surprising to me too, honestly. And again, like as an actuary, you probably think about such a small pool with only 205 to have our death, because it's really just death projections at this point, be so spot on. But it actually, as Julie,
It really is. Yeah.
It's a little bit odd, but it's funny. It doesn't feel that way to Julie, I know, because she handles deaths. And it feels like, we get a whole bunch in one month and then none in the next month. But overall, it does shake out pretty close to our actuarial projections of deaths.
Any other questions or discussion about the financial report? Okay.
Okay.
Let's move on to information item number 2.
Okay, this is the legislative update for the 2026 legislative session that ended March 6th. This is a short year, so there's not a whole lot of key things that go through that impact or potentially impact FPDR. Specifically this year, there was no PERS legislation that went through on anything. So the three bills that I was watching, I think will have some level of impact on FPDR. One is House Bill 4040. It's an omnibus bill of a whole bunch of things that impacted a lot of different statutes across the entire Oregon revised statutes. It did have one area that impacted workers' compensation, and that was where they reclassified physician associates and nurse practitioners. In the past, they both had a 180-day period to which they could approve medical treatment as well as approve a time loss. And then after 180 days, the member had to go to a treating physician to get those approvals. They eliminated that 180-day limit, so nurse practitioners and physician associates, excuse me if I used the wrong name, they've moved it up to physician associates. They can approve time loss and medical treatment without any limitations going forward. The idea behind that is there's a lot of medical, it's hard to get medical providers in certain parts of the state and in certain diagnostic classes, and so they've gone to using nurse practitioners and physician associates. And so that's why workers' comp is now expanded. And so what we will likely do here, probably sometime in September or November, is come in with a new rule where we will mirror that change in it to what will expand beyond the 180 days. And we won't wait until that rule comes in to make that change. As soon as the bill is signed, we'll go ahead and, or as soon as it goes effective, we'll start doing that, even if we don't have the rules caught up with it yet.
And Sam, are you comfortable with that practice? That they're proposing those additional services and approvals?
It goes back to the difficulty of getting a lot of medical practitioners, especially in rural areas, under certain diagnostic classes. And so this gives more providers that can provide treatment for people. I know I go to my doctor's office and half the time I'm seen either by a practitioner or a physician associate. And it just, what happened, especially if you're rural, your 180 days, you'd have to find a physician, and they may be an hour drive or more away from you. And so, yeah, it gives them an opportunity to continue doing it.
Okay.
There's been no documented concerns with them doing this. They all have physicians that they do contact and sort of mentor with that provide them information and coaching on certain issues with it. And the reason why we would go ahead and do this is because we in the past had where we had different descriptions of what nurse practitioners and physician associates could do versus what workers' comp says they could do. And we had a lot of confusion from providers and members of who can do what if they're FPDR, they do this, if they're workers' comp, they do that. And we decided, no, we need to come in and just for the sake of continuity of coverage and keeping everybody at the same level, mirror workers' comp on this.
Okay, thanks.
The second bill, House Bill 4177, has to deal with public meetings. If you remember a while back, we had talked about some changes they had made to public meetings, including serial communications, where if you text somebody and they text somebody and they text somebody, you've now created a quorum, even though each text only goes to one or two people, but by the time you add all the different people up that this text has gone to, you've got a quorum. There were some other situations that were unclear, so they tried to make it clearer of what constitutes a quorum and when. And what they did is created a whole list of situations to where an organization such as the FPDR board or city council can meet and not have to make the meetings public. It surprised me because it seemed to be a step back from having public meetings, and they could do a whole lot of discussions without sharing their discussions with the public. That was brought up by some ethics people, and even the Oregon Ethics Commission said, no, don't go that way. You're actually backing away and making public meetings more less public. But it did pass a big, strong push from municipalities and various agencies throughout the state. There is a big push for the governor to veto this bill simply because it is a step back in accountability or transparency for the state or for any government going forward. From our standpoint on how we meet and what we do, this will make a difference. But city council has a lot of different meetings with different people, and it's necessary for the job. And right now what they're saying is a lot of those meetings won't have to be public anymore. And I think that's a mistake with that. So, but anyway, that's my personal opinion, but there's a big push for people with that same thinking to have Governor Kotek veto this bill, and I think there's probably 50-50 chance she will veto the bill, so I'll keep you up to date on that with it. And the third one is a really minor thing that only impacts us as a bureau. It used to be that they had in there for public meetings, et cetera, that the public employer could not provide snacks, refreshments, or lunches to their own employees in meetings. You weren't allowed to do that. And our rules had us to do that. And we had to get creative with the rules to allow us to provide refreshments at our pension workshops. And according, they've now thrown that out, that you can allow to, so if you have a lunch meeting, you can provide lunch to your staff. If you've got an all-day meeting, you can provide some refreshments to the staff. So that's good for us and where it goes through. We just have to wait for the city to come in and update their administrative rules to match that. So it's a minor thing, but I know we've been frustrated. We're very concerned about how to convince people that we could buy refreshments for at the trustee workshop, or not the pension workshops. Okay. So our next setup is actually FPDR updates. And Kim, do you want to come up here? I've asked her to give you a presentation on something, procedure and policy that our staff has made.
Sure. Good afternoon, trustees. Kim Mitchell.
Are you mic on?
Am I on? Hello? Nope. Okay.
Doesn't light up, so you're going to have to keep just.
Check. Hello. There we go. Good afternoon. Kim Mitchell, FPDR Disability Claims Manager. And what I'm going to share with you today is just something that was born out of process improvement conversations I've had with my staff about how we tackle one of the challenges that we've historically had with wage offset of wages that our members earn in other employment. And I want to talk about target first, who these specific set of members are. Some of you may have heard this before, Trustee Stoffel, this may be new for you, but I'll start by just a little background. So fire and police members who suffer an injury, a claim that we've approved, and who have been determined by their doctor to be unable to return to work. They are permanently restricted from returning to their job at injury. Go through a process of evaluation to determine whether or not their injuries are permanent and total, which means they will not be able to pursue other employment, or if they are able to pursue other employment based on their physical limitations and the knowledge, skills, and abilities that they obtained through their careers or their educational skills and that. And so an assessment is done upon receipt of information from the doctor that there are permanent restrictions to determine whether or not the member is able to go out and obtain earnings of at least 1/3 of their base pay at disability. That is a vocational assessment that is done. We hire a vocational counselor who specializes in this type of work, and they compare all that information and they make an assessment for us. If the member is deemed capable of pursuing 1/3 of their base pay at disability, they fall under the term of substantial gainful activity. This member is able to pursue that. Once that designation is made, their disability benefit is reduced to 50%, and then part of their charge as members is to pursue earnings to make up for some of the loss. They will continue to get that 50% disability benefit, but they are physically capable and skilled to go out and earn wages in other employment. So we have members who pursue other employment and they get jobs with other employers, and then we have members who opt to be self-employed. And some of the challenges that we've had historically with members who are self-employed is the process of verification of wages, which we do annually. We ask for tax forms and things like that to verify the wages that they've been reporting to us throughout the year as a way of shoring up and making sure that we're paying the correct benefit. And we have used tax forms historically, but again, through the process of process improvement, looking at how we could do it differently to ease the burden both on FPDR in terms of trying to interpret and understand tax information that is submitted to us, and on the members in terms of just getting to the information we need. Tax documentation contains a lot of extraneous information that we don't use. What we want to find out is what they are earning so that we can correctly offset that information. So what we found after looking at this and reaching out to Council Lauren Dowenauer with FPDR Council is that there's a form that has been used for a long time, both in pension plans and other industrial injury type plans, and that's the SSA 7050 form. And so this is a request for Social Security earnings information. This is information that is reported to the Social Security Administration, both by employers and those who are self-employed, and is compiled and saved. And so what we do, what we have started, and it's very much in its infancy, is sent member notice that we would like to have this information, be able to get this information to help us with wage offset in lieu of, hopefully in lieu of submitting tax forms as a way of verifying their wages. So it is something that, again, we hope will ease the burden all the way around on our membership and on FPDR in terms of doing our due diligence to offset earnings appropriately or shoring that up at the end of the year. And just something Sam wanted me to share with you today. You have any questions?
And just to make it sure, because I think some people have seen this form and they go, oh my God, they now got Social Security. It is only the earnings that were reported to Social Security that they're sending back. They're not sending anything else. We don't see the 1040 form. We don't see any of the other stuff. It's what the IRS considers earnings and what somebody has reported. They send that back to us. So just this is the advantage. It's very narrow. We don't have to impose on people to send us their entire 1040 and all the schedules that attach to it.
Any questions?
No, I can see that this would be a challenging aspect of operations.
It is. It has been forever.
And I have no doubt that your staff does it very delicately and respectfully.
Yes, yes. Yes, thank you. So, yep, we're looking, we look for ways to improve our processes, and we think this is one that'll be a plus for everybody.
Good.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Okay, I have a couple more items under FPDR updates to move ahead. One is a little bit more discussion on the operations realignment project that we spent talking about at our last meeting, and I sent you a follow-up email with it. So just a real quick recap, the purpose of the project is we want to set clear expectations for how these functions, both HR functions, technology services functions, and procurement functions occur throughout the city. Under the siloed form of government, you had different silos on how people did these services differently, and they want to standardize them across the city. They're also looking for opportunities for streamlining the work that's being done so everybody's doing it the same and not have so many redundancies between each bureau. You can bring them into a central area and you need fewer employees to do that work. And if they're all following the same rules, that makes it easier. So the realignment project has two parts going on right now. The first part was identifying the position savings, which unfortunately means position terminations with it. So there will be people terminated under this part of the project with it. They're now still working through that. There's a lot of training going out to managers of how to handle layoff notices with people. And the actual people haven't been named, but there's so much work and it's getting set so fine right now. People can look at the data and say, well, that's got to be me. You don't have my name on the list yet, but that's me. And so they're working with managers or working with their staff to let them know that they potentially will be laid off. Not a fun opportunity, and the numbers are in the hundreds. So it's a big issue with it. So that's where the realignment project is working on that. And the next step is the actual realignment. Where do people go? Where should they sit? Who should they report to? This is the one that would impact us. Our BSA would then be reporting up to BTS. Our concern is what's the model they're going to use when they do that? They're just going to pull our BSA and she's immediately gone and we won't see her, and we have to go in and start requesting different BSA services, and they give us somebody from the pool to do that. There are certain areas in the city that they're doing a hybrid approach to where they're leaving people in a bureau, and then over time, as BTS gets more attuned to what is required, you may see some of those BTS responsibilities be moved off into a pool, and this person may be doing pool work for other bureaus. The idea is that you're training people that can come in and do the work that the BSA had done. I haven't heard officially what's going on, but I will let you know that I'm still pushing for the status reports. We probably won't hear more official status reports till later in this month or early in April. But I've been bugging certain people, and I did have a great 45-second meeting with the BTS bureau director, and it was very positive, and I'm meeting more with her this week, and we're going to be talking about a couple different things here. One of it is how do we work with our BSA, and can we try that graduated move-out project with it? I did not get any negative. And I think actually I can make a sell to it is because they won't have people trained up to do the work that we need. So it wouldn't be advantageous to us or to them, because they will be getting, I think, 170 new people or positions from around the city that will report to BTS. They won't all move into the BTS offices, but they will be scattered around. So I have a positive thing to where just that quick heads up I had with the bureau director. I think there's some definite possibilities. I'll keep looking at it. I'll keep listening to what the team is, and I am still working with getting a work session between you and the team and some of the decision makers so they can go into more detail what's happening, what's going on, and what their vision is going forward. I just know that may not occur until April. We've got to get to a point where they've got enough detail there they can share stuff with you. So it's still very high on my list. We're creating a booklet of FPDR BSA duties and responsibilities. So we've got them all written out to what Sam Clark is doing today, how she's doing it and everything. So we can just show, hey, look, this is what you need to provide us. This will be our standards of performance for you, is to provide this information. And when we have an interagency agreement, this is what will be on it that we need to do. And we've also listed the risk, because if these tasks aren't done on time or done correctly, what can happen? Because Kim and Stacy have said there are certain aspects that will have significant risk for us if they aren't done right. So I'm still working on it. I'm optimistic to what I can work out with BTS, but I can't guarantee it at this point. And then I'm certain what we work out, we'll have to get approved up the chain with that. So any questions on that right now? Okay.
Just a comment. We had addressed at the last meeting the possibility of setting up a work session to address this. It sounds like
Yep.
that's just going to be postponed indefinitely at this point.
I don't want to postpone indefinitely. I want the meeting done. It's just right now, as we are looking in March, but they're still working on the first phase of job layoffs. So as they get off that focus, they will be coming in and looking more detailed in the realignment process and how and when it's going to be done. And when they develop that far enough down that they're able to explain better what they're going to do, that's when I want to get a work session.
Okay. Thank you.
It's on my list to do. Okay, see the next one. Okay, so the next one I have right here is just the status of the contract resolutions that you all have passed in this past several months. So the interagency agreement with the Oregon Office of Administrative Hearings has been signed by all parties, is in effect finally. It just, I won't, I took 13 months to get to the signature on the page. I don't know. Very much thanks to Julie for being very persistent and knocking on doors continuously to make this happen. And I think she finally they got so annoyed dealing with this, okay, we'll get it done, and they got it done. The OBS contract for extending the not to exceed amount has been signed by OBS. We've got commitments to sign here, but with the new organizational restructure, there's a concern of, okay, who's the one that signs this particular one? So I expect that to be signed by the end of this week or next week. It's just figuring out who has to ink it with that. And then for the outside attorney, we will begin negotiating either later this week or next week on that. And we should have a decision, and we'll let you know when that goes. So that's some good news on that front. Okay, I do have one other thing here. I'm trying to find my notes on here. There we go. So this is one to be thinking about as we move forward, is we have to have the future plans for the FPDR database. I think I've alluded to in the past that it's old. It's a homemade application by FPDR and probably is 13, 14 years old. Every time we make changes, we have to add to it. It's written in a certain Microsoft-supported code. It's called .NET Framework. The version they're on is no longer supported at all. So there's been no recent security updates, and will be no more security updates on that particular version. So as we move ahead, the first step we have to do, and I see this as an interim step, but is to get upgraded to a .NET Framework version that is still supported by Microsoft and will have all the security updates on it. Just to let you know, the version we're updating it to will only last about 2 years before it's no longer supported. But the problem is that to go up to the next level is a major change to the application. So that's a decision that we're going to be making and looking at. On this patch that we have for the upgrade to this new .NET Framework version, OBS Online Business Systems estimates the cost of this patch is about $26,000 with a 6-week timeline. So since OBS is merged with CGI, I want to confirm that this bid, it isn't a bid, but their estimate still stands, and they're still willing to do the work and in the time frame. And if they are, we're going to be looking, when do we want to do that here? So we will bring a resolution to you all in May for approving this work by OBS. We'll just be asking for the $26,000. It'll technically be amendment to the agreement, but it'll have a special statement of work in which they will do that statement of work for $26,000 or whatever the final agreed to amount is. The next step is to go, okay, what do we do in the future? We can't, like I said, this patch, as it's being called, will only take us 2 years. The system is old. It's not doing what we really needed to do. And we're looking, what are some options moving forward? So we've worked with BTS and with Sam Clark, or BSA, and some other people. And the plan that's going to be recommended is that at some point later this year, because we have a major project to complete on the present database, it's the Wells Fargo project, and to get this patch put in place. But sometime after that is we start requirements gathering for a view of what we want the system of the future to look like. And also part of that requirements gathering will likely have some process improvements with it. There are good vendors in the area as well as in the country that do this kind of work. So we'd be looking to bring a vendor in, and their sole goal is to help us come up with requirements and a view of what this application should be doing in the future. Once we have that, then we will start looking for, are there off-the-shelf systems out there that do most of what we do? We may have to have 2 different systems, a pension system and a disability decision, because there are a lot of off-the-shelf workers' compensation systems. So we'll take a look at that. Do they meet our requirements? Then at that point, you go out with an RFP maybe to these companies or just open it up, but at least we can invite the people that we think, hey, I have some options here to bid on that. So we'll look for an off-the-shelf. Now, off-the-shelf doesn't mean it's going to do 100% of what we need off the bat. So we'll need some level of customization to meet what we do, to meet those requirements that we've come out with, and then to implement the selected project. The overall time frame for this, once you get started with your requirement effort to the point to when you think you'll be doing it, is 2 to 3 years, which is normal for this size of project to take that long. We've seen some very rough estimates. I think they're valid estimates, but they do have a lot of plus or minus simply because we're too early into the project. And they're looking at anywhere from $500,000 to $1.5 million to do this. And given some of the estimates I've seen, I think these are in the ballpark, but they do have that big plus or minus onto it. And we won't know a lot of this until we get through the requirement session. Then that'll give us a better feel for what the part after the requirement session will cost us. So we'll be talking with you more about this. We'll bring to you in May the agreement with, or the amendment with OBS for have them to do the upgrade to the .NET framework and get all the security features input into the system. And then we will start talking to you about what's our plan for the first step, which is requirements gathering. We already have some good ideas out on the table, but I'm trying to keep everybody making these steps, not taking too much on at one time, because we have to get the Wells Fargo project on board so we can have them pay the correct benefits out to our retirees, as well as get this .NET framework put in. We may be able to merge those two together, but we'll take a look at that. And then after that, we'll start looking at the database. We'll keep you up to date, more specifics on what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. But it's stuff that has to get done with it. And I think so we'll just put this seed out there for you all, think about it, and we can come back up in May. And if you want to have just a more general discussion of what you think's going on and any kind of suggestions you have, because ultimately we'll come back to you as the board to make to agree with the decision that we've made to go forward, because you'll have to agree to the cost of our action plan. Any questions on that? I'm just down to one more topic here. The next board meeting is May 26th. So we will not do the FPDR pension because I think we resolved that here. We will have either, I'm going to call it the TANs or interfund loan or other options for FPDR funding for the next July 26th till property taxes arrive. So Stacy's going to be coming up looking at her different options at that time and present those to you. And we'll also have that resolution to amend the OBS contract to allow the upgrade to the FPDR database. Oh, that's right. When I come up and mention real quick what that is.
Sorry. Is it on now? Yes. Yeah, I had just mentioned this to Sam and Julie last week. Milliman will also be here in May to present the results of the most recent plan experience study, which is going on right now. And so as you might remember, we use experience studies to get most of the assumptions that we use to do the plant valuation, and also that we use pretty extensively in the budget process. So they will come and tell you which assumptions they think might need to be updated, and then you'll formally agree or not to accept those. So they will be here in May as well. And then also in May, I will give you all an update on how the 27 payday retirement month is going. Our meeting is almost at the end of the month. So at that point, I should have a pretty good sense of how many folks actually left the city. But right now we're expecting a lot. Pension coordinator just told me this morning that her maybe list is up to 98. Of course, not all of them will go, but it's going to be a big month.
Stacy, along that line, are retirees, is there any advance notice that they have to provide about this, or can they come in one day and say, it's today?
Well, I always say to them, we're not a McDonald's drive-through. Don't do that to us. No, they almost always provide plenty of ample notice. And I remember we were talking about our liaisons meeting or two ago, the liaisons also do a lot of work to get the word out. Of saying, hey, remember, you have to make an appointment. You have to make an appointment, and especially in a 27 payday month, it's pretty hard to handle walk-ins. That said, every year there's somebody who sort of just wanders in and says, I'm done today. We're like, okay. And we can make that happen. I think the last time that happened, it was the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and I was like, really? You're killing me now. But most of the time, they do give us ample. It's quite a process to retire from the city. In addition to us, there's all the things they have to do, with their bureau and getting their leave paid out and going. Yeah, it's a long process.
Okay. Well, any other miscellaneous topics or any other requested items for the May meeting? Trustees? All right, then. It sounds to me, if there's no other questions or comments, it sounds to me like we've wrapped things up and we're ready to adjourn. So,
Good.
all right.
Have a good one, everybody.
Yep. Have a great day. Take care.
Thank you.